I think in the next 5 years, this is what we're going to see in the rest of the fitness industry. Like the last 5 years was about ancillaries, health mitigation. And I think the next 5 years is going to be about mitochondrial health and just optimizing cognitive function throughout prep. Because, I mean, we all know that bodybuilders are a little bit silly and dumb and stupid sometimes, but I think that's going to go away over the next 5 years.
Yeah,
because they're all going to die?
No, yes, I think some of them are going to die. We have like a 50% die off, and a 50% the LD 50 is going to be. No, I think we're going to get over this roadblock of being the dumb meathead, and I think a lot of guys that are, already have a good standing in the fitness industry, they're really going to put their feet forward and just show and lead by example that, hey, we can do this while being in a good mood and being approachable and being nice and friendly. And I think us and a couple select few people in the fitness industry are going to lead that because, it's just way more important. And we will show that at the same time we can be in shape and just have a good fan interaction, whether we're 4% body fat or 10. Welcome to Anabolic Roundtable with Kurt Havens and Dr. Dean St. Mart. Dr. Dean is 3 days out and he's looking sharp AF.
The face
How are you
is
doing,
all,
man?
I'm doing
you're sunken
good.
in.
My face is all sunken in. We went away for the weekend for Morgan's birthday and we took a photo together. I was like to Morgan, my face has just gone past the point of like Skeletor now. So that's when if I had no beard now, I'm sure you'd see like my cheekbones dug in and whatever. So that's when you're ready.
Exactly. Yeah, your glutes are dialed in also. I mean, you improved a lot since Dubai. And I figured you were going to be a watery mess. Dubai has a lot of food. It was good to meet you, by the way. It was really cool to meet you in the gym that day, share a workout with you. It was fucking awesome.
Absolutely. I mean, like I said, and people who are watching this, when you see Steve on video, it just doesn't do him justice of what he looks like in person.
I get that a lot.
It's it's only when you see videos that you go, okay, now this is a serious physique.
Yeah, thank you. It was funny, right? So when you finally meet each other in real life, like you're way taller than I thought you'd be, and way leaner than I thought you'd be, and then we have a workout, and so we did. I'll link it down below, by the way, the Limitless 7 workout video that we shot, so you can kind of see what we were doing and having fun over there at Venus One Gym. But it's always great to meet people in real life. So I can't wait to meet Kurt in real life in 12 weeks out. Yeah, 12 weeks out. I'm trying to show up in my best shape. That's for sure. Dean, did you make a choice on coming to the Mr. Olympia? Or you're not sure yet?
Not yet. Obviously, we dropped the teaser. We've got that new supplement needs building that's about to go into obviously the next phase of construction. So it might actually be launched sometime in October. So I'm not too sure yet on travel plans, but if that doesn't go ahead, I'm hoping to get a flight over to Vegas because definitely want to come see the Olympia after not being there for I think 5 or 6 years.
Oh, right. Well, we got the booth sorted, and I think Chase Irons and friends, the booth, that's already paid for, and he was looking for some furniture, so I think we're going to get like 6 or 7 seats.
We have all the stuff now.
Yeah, we have all the stuff?
Amazing.
Okay.
Yeah. There's no refrigerator.
Well, we can fix that also. Just get one of those AJ fridges. I'm not sure if you guys have that. Like AJ here is like a super cheap brand in Thailand. It's like fridges for $50 and a microwave for $10, and it lasts as long as a weekend.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's perfect for Airbnbs. And then you can probably get some money back if you recycle it, for the aluminium and the copper wires that are inside. So yeah, all you have to do is show up, and then you can sit down and join us, and I'll be there most of the week. Yeah.
Looks like it's going to be a good educational weekend as well. You've obviously got the educational talk yourself that at the Olympia University or something is what it's called, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. They asked me last weekend, or the last year, but then I already had plans. So now I'm going to join for at least one panel, the TRT panel. And then I think we have Ali Gilbert and Dylan Gemelli and Rick Collins and all kinds of names from the industry, George Stouliatos from Greece. So, it's going to be a lot of fun. I think it's about an hour or two.
Very nice.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's going to be fun. Kurt, how have you been, man?
Good. Excellent.
Yeah?
Just churning.
Just nothing new?
Coaching. No, I've had a lot of guys in shows every single week for a few weeks now.
You took care of all of Paul's clients when he was competing, or?
I didn't need to. I had my own.
Okay.
And I didn't need to. I helped Paul peak for that show.
Yeah.
I do things a little different than Justin. I pull the food down. Justin typically brings the food up.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So.
Very similar.
He had a little bit of a setback with the diuretics and water retention and stuff, but he pulled it off at the end. So that's all that matters. And he looked good, man. So Paul's now an IFBB pro.
He is. Pretty cool.
True. It is.
And I believe he's going to compete in 5 weeks from now at his full pro show.
Yeah, he went to Mexico. He's kind of relaxing now. And then after that, he's going to, I mean, he basically stays on diet like Dean. I can't believe how you guys do that on holiday. Like, I ate whatever the fuck I wanted in Dubai, and I gained like 10 pounds.
Well, I think I'm the exception because obviously I trust no one now when I go out to eat in restaurants with celiac. So it's a bit different. I'm the very skeptic one. I've put my faith in who's cooking the foods. So I stuck with just pure like meal prep for most of the trip in Dubai, and then we went out to eat obviously in the evening time, but again, always paranoid on looking at, what's on the menu, where can cross-contamination come in, and knowing full well that one little upset would just ruin you. They got like, I forget now what you call it. It's like Nando's peri-peri chicken to the clinic one day.
Yeah.
And, only for, again, my skeptical self checked the online menu, sure the peri-peri glaze had gluten in it. So I was about to eat and I was like, I better check just the nutrition. And it goes to show you that, if you're not diligent like that, you get stung.
Yeah, and the good thing about Dubai is that they mention all that stuff. Right? They mention the calories and if there's potential peanut or pineapple or gluten allergies, if that can set it off. So that's why I like Dubai a lot, because there's so many food options, but you can also modify it quite a bit. So I had an Airbnb. And I had an Airbnb right next to Dubai Mall. So you have the Kempinski Hotel, and then the Airbnb is basically in the same building. So you have to pass the Kempinski lobby, and then you go to your Airbnb. I had a kitchen, fully decked out. So I cooked 2 meals myself. And then the last meal, like you, we just went out to eat. But then the last meal, I ate whatever. Like on holiday, I don't care. And I had a couple of days where I had like distended stomach. Yeah, because you just get bloated and it's food that you never eat. And I ran a little bit of tirzepatide to kind of blunt my appetite. So then the meals kind of sit in your stomach, because otherwise I have a tendency to overeat on holiday because there's so much great food in Dubai Mall and everywhere in Dubai. Yeah, it's a lot. But I didn't really get fat. It was only after I met Wesley Vissers in Holland that I felt like, now I can let go. I have to look good training with Wesley Vissers. So I was in shape training with him. And then I had a wedding. And then all the Dutch crap food showed up at the wedding, all that fried stuff, like fish and chips, basically the equivalent of fish and chips in the UK, or donuts in America, that kind of stuff. And we have bitterballen, which is like a little fried meatball, basically. So I had way too many of those because I haven't eaten those in 5 years. And then the next day I literally woke up like, ooh, my lower back is now so fat. So I held it together until Wesley Vissers, and then after that it was all downhill. That's what holidays for, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You got to have balance.
Yeah. So what about you, Kurt? At the Mr. Olympia, are you going to let go, or are you going to stay in shape? And
I mean, I'm not dieting specifically for anything. Me getting fat is probably not going to ever happen.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
There's
going to be a lot of dinners, though. I already know. Like I've people on my inbox, like we'll have an anabolic podcast dinner, and then a couple other people's dinner. So they're probably going out to dinner every day. Yeah, but I'm looking forward to it.
At the Arnold, we went to some Brazilian steakhouse. I think I outate all those guys, and they were all 100 pounds heavier than me.
Yeah. We did that at Swiss also with Paul and the crew. So I'm sure we'll do something like that. I actually know 4 Brazilian steakhouses in Las Vegas, believe it or not. I've only been there twice.
Are you coming solo, or is your wife coming with you?
No, my wife is not going to come. She thought about coming, but now after going to Holland, and then the flight back was kind of rougher. She couldn't really sleep, and And we'll start the implantation process probably next month.
Cool.
So if she's pregnant on the first hit, and she doesn't want to travel 24 hours there and then back, and I'm gonna be honest, like the older I get, the tougher it gets, dude. Traveling, it's not fun. How was your trip back, Dean? Was it okay?
We're okay.
6 hours, right?
Coming back, it's 8. Going, it's 7. But coming back 8, and I mean, it was an afternoon flight, so we left at 3, landed at 11 Dubai time, but it was 8 p.m. Irish time, so it was fine. I mean,
that's fine.
When you're traveling business, you've got a comfortable seat and whatever, so the time goes quick. You do work or whatever, read a book. So it went pretty quick.
Was that with Emirates business?
Emirates, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it's so good.
So good. Yeah.
It's so good. I got lucky. I got upgraded when I arrived at the airport in Amsterdam. Like, economy is full, and since you fly with us quite a lot over the last couple of years, we'll upgrade you to business. So I wanted to fast on the way back, but that did not happen because the food in business class is way too good.
It is.
And I might have had like 4 cocktails.
Yeah. You've got a good bar. Morgan took advantage of that for sure.
Yeah, so I had a cocktail, took a nap. Yeah, the funny thing is with business, you can go all the way flat. Now, I can't lay on my back being this wide because it's narrow. So you just lay on my side. So that was pretty good. And then so I had a cocktail, took a nap, had a cocktail, took a nap, had a cocktail, took a nap. And then we arrived in Dubai. I was, I think, 108. So that's 235 after Holland.
And what are you, 5'11"?
I wish, man. I'm 5'9".
Oh, okay. It's big.
Yeah. I'm
like
not the smallest guy. I match up with some guys pretty well. Just it doesn't show on camera. So, yeah, you'll see. I promised Chase Irons that we're both going to be 230 shredded at the Mr. Olympia. Yeah. But his 230 will probably look different than mine. I have a wide waist, thick bones.
Chase is big when you see him in person.
I saw him at 290 at the Swiss Symposium. Oh. Me and I arrived with Scott McNally from the Think Big Bodybuilding Media channel. Mm-hmm. And so I stayed with him one night, and then we all drove with Victoria Falcar. We drove to Columbus. And then we arrived, we see this big, tanned, muscular guy. So that's either Ken Skip Hill or it's Chase Irons. So it was Chase. He's huge, man. You can't even give the guy a hug. He's very big. But he shredded up a lot. Like everybody was really giving him... everybody was giving him shit for having a wide waist and a little bit of distension. Yeah, and then I told him, said, dude, as soon as the GH and the insulin and the food comes down, you can pull a vacuum again. That's exactly what happened.
Yeah, food.
Yeah, it's just food, and water from the GH and stuff. So he tightened up a lot. He looks great.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll probably meet around 230, 235. And then after that, I'm going to go on a cruise also. So I just started my Mr. Olympia cycle today. Yeah. But it's still the same stupid dosages that you would laugh at. So it's 150 test, 150 primo, and 150 mastrone.
Okay, I'm not.
But I'm willing to increase. If
you can make progress on that, then by all, I would always say low doses if it works.
Yeah, I'm not making progress. I'm just preventing catabolism. So like the weird thing for me is it's very easy to grow as long as I eat. So if I eat over the weekend, I go to Dubai and Holland, I just put on size and it doesn't go away. So I did, you barely train, and I probably gained like 2 kilos of muscle, just restore it. And now all I have to do is keep that. And then for the next 12 weeks, I'll diet down. And I'm on 10 IUs of growth hormone per day, like we discussed last time. Mm-hmm. So, how much catabolism can you expect?
Very little.
Yeah. So let's see. I'm about 225 now, so I'll just recomp until that time and maybe gain a little bit more size.
Cool.
And show up shredded. But I will stop the growth hormone a week before, because when I arrived in Dubai, dude, my ankles were like...
from the flight.
That's why I traveled wearing 2 pairs of flight socks. Make sure I was not retaining any fluids from the flight, obviously with the long flight and the change in pressure.
Yeah. So I figured, you know what, I'm going to, because usually I fast while traveling, and that always has worked, but I never run this much growth hormone before. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to stop the growth hormone the day before. I'm going to fly, no food. And when I arrive, I should be okay. Big fucking mistake. So I had to buy the compression socks in Dubai Mall for $20. It's not overpriced. It shouldn't be that much. And then I slept with it for 3 days. And then after 2 days, it was like, it didn't go away. So I bought some Lasix at the pharmacy. I took a Lasix. And then the day after, I met Dean. So Dean is like, man, you look pretty good. I said, well, I took a Lasix yesterday. I'm cheating. I didn't sleep at all. I was pissing every 30 minutes for the entire night. I must have dropped like 4 kilos of water. It's insane.
You'd have been even bigger.
Yeah. So I was very tight in the morning, right? So I only had breakfast, right? So you don't really retain much water. But I was surprised how lean I was after that. There was veins everywhere, and so that was pretty good.
That's the most GH you've ever run?
Yeah, I ran 8 IUs Pharma like years ago with about 2.5 grams a test. But back then it wasn't affordable. It was like $6 a unit. Now I'm paying like $1.20.
Yeah.
So I'm running like $12 a day, whereas before that would give you like two IUs or 3 IUs at best. So it's not that I'm short on money, but there's only so much money I'm willing to spend on growth hormone.
When there's only so much growth hormone, that's good, depending on where you are.
Exactly. So I got lucky.
Not good.
Yeah, I got lucky with this generic. So I tested 3.3 IUs and then 10 IUs, and it came back a little bit higher than expected. And the water retention is manageable as long as I do my daily fasted cardio and diet. So it's like, you know what? Let's push it up. Let's see what happens. And of course, everybody thinks that I run low dosages and lying about it. But if I'm running low dosages, but I'm running 10 IUs of growth alongside of that, and I mean, I'm not a selective liar.
Yeah, and 10 is kind of where it really gets fun. 8 to 10 is kind of where it really gets good.
Yeah. So I'll run that all the way to the Olympia. I'll probably increase my dosages of steroids a little bit, depending on blood work. I'll go again Sunday, and then see where I end up. Yeah.
3,000 Masteron and 40 milligrams a test?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, 120 milligrams Thomas Hard time. Like, Luki, there's sodium on standby just for the drop of blood pressure. For sure. So I had a couple topics, but I can't remember because we barely did any preparation for the show.
Well, we have On MOTS-c, right? We have Blue.
Yeah, so we'd already discussed this Dubai talk. So maybe we can start off with mitochondrial health because I know me and Dean are kind of heavy on that. Mm-hmm. Kurt, do you focus on that in your coaching or yourself, like mitochondrial function? Or
not directly, but yeah, I mean it's super important if you want to be healthy.
So maybe we can even teach you something new.
Sure, I would love it.
Yeah,
and I only have one kidney, so it's something I'm aware of.
Okay. Right. Dean, you want to get started? Because you're actively in contest prep and you've been running all kinds of mitochondrial support stuff.
Absolutely. I mean, I was only going to put up a screenshot of my nutrition over the last 12 weeks, and it's not once changed from 3,500 on a training day to 2,600 on a rest day. And then I've had pretty much every week for the last 12 weeks 2 refeeds of like 4,500 calories, so carbs bumped to 600. Between my last show, so obviously if people didn't see obviously on the last video when you shared, I won the overall at the last show that I done, which was like just turn up out of retirement and win the overall.
So you're now the Irish champion?
It was for the Northern Ireland Grand Prix for BPA, so they'd be the IFBB Elite, in the NPC and the IFBB split. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So they'd be the other branch of the IFBB. Oh. And that was their Northern Ireland.
Competing with the enemy.
Well, they're on two sides. I'm obviously doing NPC this weekend with two bros. So just wanted to test the water. The BPA show, like we seen on the last show, is literally, I just picked the show and said, right, let's just brush off the cobwebs.
Right.
We're going on vacation. Yeah, we're going on vacation next Tuesday. So this show was always like a goal to get in shape for the holiday. And as things progressed, with discussing with Callum, was like, well, let's do the show. Let's do the Emerald Cup. Mm-hmm. So literally, this prep has been pretty much facilitated by, low oxidative stress, keeping mitochondria happy. My condition between the last show and now, nothing's changed. Like, I'm still doing what we talked about in the last show of 125 test, 300 primo, and then the 10 milligrams of tren and dianolone, and then 30 milligrams of winstrol on training days. That's it. And then obviously then the lipolytics, growth hormone has been out now about 2.5 weeks, because between Dubai and then with this show, just pulled it out. So that's even made me drier.
Yeah, I can tell. Yeah.
From a fat loss perspective, if nothing's changed, like, so I didn't do any extra cardio, no extra steps, nothing changed between the last show and now, other than, again, facilitating my mitochondria. So obviously there was an energy deficit, and my body was happy to utilize body fat to move it. So at the top of it, I guess, like lipolytic setup wise, like I said the last time, I wake up, I do 125 micrograms of ipamorelin, CJC, and growth hormone frag. It's all in a blend from Biolabs. 125 of each, go out and do 20 minutes cardio on the cross trainer and keep my heart rate at like 120, 130. That would be like the first setup of like burning fatty acids, lipolyzing fatty acids. And then after that, they have another blend, which is the SLU-PP-322, which is the...
I want to know about this, because you're the only one who actually ran that. And it's very interesting. I'm getting questions every day, but I haven't had a chance to incorporate. So spill the beans.
It is remarkable. That's the only thing that I can state. And the only thing that has changed between the last show and this show was I took an extra 200 micrograms. So I went from 200 micrograms to 400. And you've seen the difference in the condition. When you look at the animal data with SLU, I don't know the exact way that it is doing it, but mitochondrial efficiency of utilizing fatty acids exponentially increases. They literally, in rats, if people want to search, we can even put the research, I'll send on the papers for this.
Yeah, I'll overlay it. I'll find it. I'll overlay it.
They purposely made the rats obese and then done nothing other than give them SLU-PP-226 or 236. And within, I think, 3 weeks, had completely reversed the obesity in the rats without doing anything different.
Wow. Is this an endogenous occurring peptide, or is this a man-made one?
It's a man-made one, but it's an estrogen receptor-like agonist.
Okay.
So what they think it does is it improves overall mitochondrial efficiency by literally completely lowering oxidative stress. Yep. And it makes cardiomyocyte efficiency improve as well. And obviously the mitochondria of the heart is pretty susceptible in the body to oxidative stress. For some reason, this dramatically improves the efficiency of the mitochondria in heart tissue as well as the whole body. That is the only thing that has changed between the last show and now, is an extra 200 micrograms of SLU. And literally my body weight has dropped from the last show. I weighed in at 87 kilos, which I think is 192 pounds. Now I'm sitting at 190 at 86. Wow. And literally the only change is 2 pounds. But visually, you see, like, my glutes now are properly striated. Yeah. Whereas the last show, I did know I was holding a little bit, but that wasn't obviously the end goal. And I'd only been, quote unquote, on prep about 8 weeks for that last show. So it's just a warm up. That is the only thing that has changed between that show and now, is the SLU, which, again, is just completely remarkable. Dubai, I didn't do anything different in Dubai. Still done the morning cardio, still trained. If anything, I probably underate a little bit. But
yeah, you were off the injectables, right? Because you were scared to bring them.
Pretty much, yeah. Literally just done it before I travelled. So, there was stuff there that was an off week, if you want to put it.
I know what it is. You reset your androgen receptors. That's
We're
what
all
it is.
dirty. We're so good.
So dirty. I had a detox while I was away.
Yes. And then they all upregulated magically in the absence.
Yeah, all the sweating, detoxify in the sauna, but you get a free sauna because you just walk outside. Yeah, man, it's not the SLU.
Yeah. You know what, right? I've never experienced weather like that. For anyone that's listening here, like, one day it was 46 degrees with 95% humidity. It was like just walking into a sauna. It was, you can deal with hot where you feel the sun on your skin, but this was like just your body's enveloped with this heat and moisture. We went for a walk one morning, I think on the second morning. It must have been the Monday before I met you with Morgan at like 7:30 in the morning. We said, let's go to the beach before I go to the clinic. We literally made it 15 minutes down the beach, and Morgan's like, call a taxi. Like, she was dripping in sweat. She's like, and surprisingly, there wasn't even any sort of grocery or convenience store, so you couldn't even get a drink. She never brought any water with her. She's like,
it's at the marina, right? They're in the front where all the restaurants are. Yeah, and those are not open yet, the restaurants, if you go 7, 8 o'clock in the morning.
And so
it's
she's
offensive.
like,
the heat is offensive. Yeah. It's crazy.
And so she's like, call a taxi, you need to go back. I'm not gonna. And I was the same. Like, she took a video of me and there's just sweat dripping off me. I'm like, how could you live here in the summer? I don't know. Compared to like out here now, there's a bit of sunshine coming through my window. It's 16 degrees outside. Perfect t-shirt weather for me. It's
even worse than in Thailand. So in Thailand, it gets similar, like 39, 42 with high humidity in, let's say April, May area. But that's still doable where you go outside and have a carb refeed and you're sweating profusely from the carbs and the heat. But there it's something different, man. It's taxi to the hotel, just that little walk from the taxi to Binu's gym. You're already like, oh, fuck. It's crazy.
You forget it. Like, you go for dinner and you're sitting in a nice, like 18-degree air-conditioned restaurant. And then when you're finished, you step outside. My glasses would fog immediately. I couldn't see anything with the humidity.
And then you dress up, it makes it even worse. You're wearing like nice dress pants, dress shirt. Like I went to Atmosphere that I recommended, right? In the Burj Khalifa on the 122nd floor. So you dress up and I was like, I want to go to a cigar lounge. Let's walk back. I couldn't. I just had to walk back in and take a taxi. Yeah,
it's bad.
Too much. It's too much.
Going back to the SLU for a second, is that a biolab product as well?
They have it, yeah. Well, they've managed to source the raws on it, so it's still it's a research chemical. It's still in if you want to say in vivo trials with rats, but it's not human approved. But when we look at the dosages that were used in the rat studies, human equivalent dose is like 4 milligrams, which 200 micrograms, 400 micrograms, 4 milligrams daily. It'd be a massive amount to intake. And, in terms of like, even when you look at when you're turning over mitochondrial efficiency, the way I explain it is sort of, you've got two ways. You either optimize what you've got currently, which is keeping them happy with, keeping, oxidative stress byproducts or oxidants under control, like hydrogen peroxide, superoxide, etc. And that's true supporting like catalase, superoxide dismutase, glutathione, N-acetylcysteine intake to support glutathione being built. Or you increase the density of your mitochondria through biogenesis, so you've got more mitochondria, so you've got more factories. So you either improve the efficiency of the factories, or you build more, or you do both. You improve the efficiency and build more, and you've got the perfect, industry for burning fatty acids and glucose. So that's something that, I wish when I was younger I paid bigger attention to, was that, the importance of mitochondria towards energy production. And then obviously that energy production carries over onto appetite and to mood and to recovery. It just becomes one big entangled mess that really, when you're on like prep or dieting, keeping oxidative stress as low as possible within reason, because obviously you still want to have some level of redox happening in the body, or you're going to cause issues with too many antioxidants. Should be, at the forefront of your recovery protocol. And obviously, sleep plays into that, growth hormone, thyroid hormone, and everything like that. But if you've got, mitochondria, ironically, is part of the electron transport chain, they pump out a load of oxidants in the process. And our body has, evolved in that symbiotic relationship to create antioxidants to clean up their mess. So they give us energy and we give them somewhere to live.
Yeah.
If we're going to, view the whole, calories in, calories out equation, we briefly touched on it, that when you get at the very crux of it, it's actually your food's giving you electrons, and the electrons are feeding into the electron transport chain, and obviously the hydrogen pump. It's got nothing to do with 1 gram of carbs has 4 calories and 1 gram of fat has 9. At the very basic density of it, it's these carbons, hydrogens, oxygens, whatever, are giving X amount of electrons into your body. And so if the mitochondria are more efficient at being able to utilize, that hydrogen gradient in the electrons, you're able to burn fat more efficiently. And then obviously you're cleaning up the mess more efficiently. So this prep definitely put it down to paying attention to keeping oxidative stress under control with antioxidants, using supplements like PQQ and CoQ10 to help increase the number of mitochondria. So PQQ is what's called a pseudovitamin and helps to influence how our body regulates and creates mitochondria inside our cells. CoQ10 being one of the antioxidants that helps the mitochondrial efficiency.
Mm-hmm. Is that ubiquinone or ubiquinol, or a mix of both?
So anyone under the age of 40 could probably get away with ubiquinone, which is, I think, the oxidized form. I always get the two of them mixed up. The oxidized form, and then I think the reduced form is ubiquinol.
Yes, yeah, that's right.
And so ubiquinol gets converted from ubiquinone to ubiquinol, which is obviously the substrate that we use more efficiently. If you're under 40, the enzyme that converts ubiquinone to ubiquinol works relatively well. When you get above the age of 40, that enzymatic efficiency drops. They've done studies on this. So that's where taking, Kaneka, ubiquinol is often, recommended by people, but it's more so if you're over 40. You get away generally with using ubiquinone. But the other side of it is oral ubiquinone has really poor bioavailability. So when you take as a capsule, I think the bioavailability is about 10% overall. So it is quite low versus ubiquinol. With the other side of it, then, I've done regular, 4-week cycles of MOTS-c over the last year. So I've done 5 milligrams of MOTS-c for 4 weeks, took a 4-week break, done another 4 weeks of 5 milligrams, and then pretty much every month since then, just 1 5 milligram sort of burst dose each month. The problem with MOTS-c that people need to be aware of is that it acts like methotrexate, so it is a folate blocker. So how it improves mitochondrial biosynthesis is by blocking folate transport, like methotrexate. So
that's why you take 4 weeks off.
So you really need to supplement with active folate when you're using MOTS-c because of that side to it. Otherwise, you're going to end up with potential mood issues, mood disturbance, all the sort of symptoms of low folate and low methylation. Yep. Between those two, they were sort of the key things that, I paid attention with driving mitochondrial number up between the PQQ, the MOTS-c. And then, regularly taking like liposomal glutathione, the heart stack product that I developed with all the antioxidants, just really getting down to the nitty gritty on keeping on top of internal organ health. And then your body just follows with it.
So about 1.5 years ago, I made a video called the Mitochondrial Support Stack. And it's very good to see that, at least besides me, somebody now is almost following that to the T and getting great results. I did not include the SLU-PP because that was not a thing, but MOTS-c, 5 milligrams twice per week, B vitamins to help support these kinds of processes. glutathione, right, injectable, whether that's 600 milligrams 3 times per week or 800 milligrams intravenously. And, just making sure that the antioxidant status is so high with ubiquinol and PQQ, pyrroloquinoline quinone. I said this 1,000 times, so now I can finally pronounce it. Did you take like 20 milligrams servings of the PQQ twice per day with about 100 to 200 milligrams ubiquinol and then Shilajit fulvic acid to facilitate absorption? Or did you skip the Shilajit?
I haven't taken Shilajit in a while, but I have some there that I often add into coffee in the morning time. But the PQQ that we've added BioPerine to facilitate the absorption in the intestine, and they're 20 milligram tablets, so 2 20 milligram tablets per day. The other thing, from the notes we talk about, like NMN or NAD, or again, if you're taking nicotinic acid, flush niacin, that's going to help with your NAD levels. And it's, having enough of a balance between NAD plus and reducing NADP. There's a fine balance between the two of them. Methylene blue, I see in the notes there, like methylene blue I'll use 2 or 3 times per week, which again, on one side, like super oxygenates your cells and acts like an endogenous antioxidant, as well as, as MAO inhibitor properties as well, that helps with mood. I guess, the problem is if you don't really understand, like, I think the really key point to take away here is if you start increasing your mitochondrial number, but the underlying stress or oxidative stress is really high, you're just setting yourself up for a massive bonfire. So
just create more oxidative stress.
You're just creating more of the guys that create more oxidative stress. You're just running yourself further towards disease than away from it. So the two of them have to be done in tandem to get the benefits, not just, I'm going to take PQQ and MOTS-c to improve my mitochondria. You'd be better off putting strategies in play to reduce oxidative stress first and then start playing off the increased numbers.
Am I wrong that the relevance here is people that lift would have less mitochondrial density versus someone who does aerobics?
So the interior, doing aerobic exercise increases mitochondrial number. As far as I remember, it tends to be slow, longer duration cardio improves mitochondrial number. I think. Okay. Don't quote me.
That was my understanding.
I think that's what increases the number. But obviously then doing that type of cardio does induce a level of oxidative stress as well, because of how the energetics are from oxidative phosphorylation. So, it's something that I don't even think some of the pro bodybuilders pay attention to currently, but, maybe from what we're sort of speaking about and the relevance of it, eventually sort of start realizing that you improve mitochondrial efficiency, you can eat more because your energy, kinetics improve massively. And I think that's sort of where, like, even now when someone asks me about prep or are you doing a show, are you dieting, I've sort of lived this way since the celiac diagnosis and correcting all that sort of stress or oxidative stress from the celiac disease, that it's now more so like daily living and lifestyle than, I'm on prep. Like, if this had been like a few years ago, I'm 3 days out, it would have been like, oh God, I'm 3 days out. How am I getting through today? And, you'd be hyper focused and I need to do this. Now it's just like, I'm going to turn up on Sunday and get on stage. It's not, it's been really enjoyable when your body operates this way, both cognitively and physically. The cognitive part, honestly, if anyone's listening to this and they're on prep and your brain is like mush, there's a big problem. Now I've realized you shouldn't feel any different, mentally, physically, with less body fat. You just got less body fat. We went away to a spa weekend for Morgan's birthday there on Sunday. And, a guy goes to me after I get out of the sauna, what body fat percentage do you think you are? And I said to him, I said to him, the lowest I've ever been on like a bod pod, the air displacement was 6%. And the lowest on the last prep when I done the in-body sort of electroimpedance scanner that they use for like kidney surgeries was at 4.3. I said to him, I'm probably not far off where I am back there, but I said to him, if I'm honest, I don't even feel like it. He was like, oh, do you compete? I said, well, yeah, I competed a few weeks ago and I'm going to compete next weekend. He was sort of scratching his head like, oh, well, why are you here if you're competing? Like, you know, it doesn't make sense that you're as, you know, you've got as much vitality as what you have now speaking to me. And, I just explained to him that this has just become a lifestyle as opposed to, you know, this is a big serious goal.
Can we talk about that for a second? The body fat levels and the cognitive function or the way you feel. So I noticed, like I'm pretty lean all the time and I can be, the lowest I've been on like the InBody scan is 3. And I can function the same there outside of some hunger that I can function at a higher body fat percentage. I noticed during prep, a lot of guys, once they get even to 10%, everything starts to go. I know it's multifactorial. I know there's lots of things that go into this, but is it possible that that's a mitochondrial thing?
It could, more than likely. I mean, if you think about it, between your heart, your brain is probably the most energy demanding part of your body, and that's, you know, you got mitochondria in your brain. So I think, you know, once you start seeing issues with cognitive impairment on prep, it's probably a sign of like silent inflammation going on, where brain fog, forgetting things, just lack of motivation, lack of neural signaling, and chucking a load of androgens on top with dopamine going sky high. And that's further exacerbating the oxidative stress. That, it's more than likely something isn't right within the neurochemistry. But, you know, this has been eye-opening. That I wish I could go back and tell like 22 or 23-year-old me that was starting out bodybuilding, you know, this is really what you need to pay attention to, because long-term, business-wise, relationship-wise, you know, whatever way you want to view that mental impairment has on your day-to-day activity, it doesn't have to have that effect. Because, you know, you find a lot of pros or guys who are coaches, the last 6 weeks before a show, client responses might drop off.
Zero.
Or they get sharp, snappy responses, or, you know, they lose clients because of their inability to be able to prioritize work over bodybuilding prep, to speak. None of that, you know, when I was in Dubai, I got up early in the morning to go train and do cardio. But to be honest, in hindsight, when we trained in Benus on the Monday, it's great when people come up and say hello and recognize you. But before you know it, you've spent an hour talking to people. And you're like, we're supposed to be training here.
It's okay, man. You can't escape that when you go somewhere else, you know, because everybody in Benus was very excited to see us.
Yeah.
But, you know, like, if you're at the tail end of prep and you're trained out of your mind, you would not be as approachable as you were.
Yeah. I mean, like, that was sort of where, you know, I just got on with things when I was over there with this busy schedule. I went in the morning, done my cardio, trained. I did, you know, that made sure that I was able to get in and out of the gym, you know, from 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. without anyone sort of really stopping me. There were still people at that hour of the morning, but a lot less than when we were in there at 3 p.m. in the afternoon. That, you know, to me, that was sort of like box that off. And then I spent the day, you know, in the clinic, you know, either giving seminars to the doctors there surrounding, you know, supplements, peptides, interacting with patients or clients at the clinic. And I was there from like 9 till 7, pretty much from like the Monday all the way till the Saturday when we left. That, you know, had I been like on prep, there would have come a point where, you know, after 3 or 4 hours, right, I'm out of here, or I can't deal with this mentally, or, you know, to be mood or snappiness. It was just, shut down. You know, it's daily life. And that really shows the power and testament of keeping that oxidative stress low, taking care of your brain. You know, your brain is just more important as your heart health for keeping oxidative stress low. Let alone like the kidneys. You know, there's another one there that we haven't even talked about. I haven't personally used it, is SS31. But the research on SS31 is like SLU is
kidneys,
for kidneys is amazing.
It's amazing. I want to interject real quick before we go into the SS31, because I've used it and it's quite expensive. So I think it's two parts, right? First, we optimize this mitochondrial function, which I've been doing for the last couple of years and, made videos about, and now you're doing it, and more people are slowly incorporating this. This is very good to see. And I think like what you've been doing also for a very long time and what is now getting more popular is just the reduction in training intensity and not killing yourself in the gym, and actually keeping the dose just low to the point you only use enough to sustain your muscle mass, because how much are you really going to grow during prep, especially as you've been, doing this for multiple years. I think it's like those two parts where you don't kill yourself in the gym, you don't kill yourself with drugs, and you minimize the oxidative stress and really treat your mitochondria well, which is resulting you to being cognitive the whole way through and being in a very good mood. And then I think in the next 5 years, this is what we're going to see in the rest of the fitness industry. Like the last 5 years was about ancillaries, health mitigation. And I think the next 5 years is going to be about mitochondrial health and just optimizing cognitive function throughout prep. Because, we all know that bodybuilders are a little bit silly and dumb and stupid sometimes, but I think that's going to go away over the next 5 years.
Yeah, because they're all going to die?
No, yes, I think some of them are going to die. We have like a 50% die off, and a 50% the LD 50 is going to be. No, I think we're going to get over this roadblock of being the dumb meathead, and I think a lot of guys that are already have a good standing in the fitness industry, they're really going to put their feet forward and just show and lead by example that hey, we can do this while being in a good mood and being approachable and being nice and friendly. And I think us and a couple select few people in the fitness industry are going to lead that because, it's just way more important. And we will show that at the same time we can be in shape and just have a good fan interaction, whether we're 4% body fat or 10.
Yep. And we talked about before we started filming the doing cardio. Like I had mentioned that I had added daily cardio into my routine. That seems to play a big role too, whether that's through mitochondria or not, right? So my mood, because I can get to the same body fat with cardio without cardio, but I feel like my overall mental health is significantly improved by doing daily cardio. Yeah. So whether that's through, again, multi mechanisms there, but
probably multi.
I was similar. I didn't do any cardio until I sort of gave Callum, the go ahead of this is what I'm going to potentially do for holidays. And then the show, 20 minutes fasted cardio, like you, Kurt, it allows you 20 minutes for me anyway. I put on music and I just think, or as stupid as it sounds, I will continue to maintain pace, but I'll read research papers on my phone. And before you know it, 20 minutes is up, but you're still maintaining the work. I have the heart rate monitor on, watching. But it allows you time to gather your thoughts ahead of the day of, this is what I need to do, or this is what I need to prepare for, or vice versa, just switch your brain off and be sort of in the moment when everyone's asleep or whatever, that you get that 20-minute space.
Yep. Yeah. You and I both have small children, so that there's a big thing there with like having a 20 to 30 minutes alone to get in your own head.
Exactly. And I think that's mostly what it's about, right? You get 20 to 30 minutes alone by yourself, whatever you want to do. And then you have your workout later in the day, 4 times a week or 3 times a week, where you're also by yourself.
Yep.
And that's all we get as entrepreneurs. I mean, you guys are parents, so you get even less time. But for me, it's just nonstop work. And 7 cats are also very demanding. I'm sure it's just as bad as having 2 kids, just a nonstop, just attention seeking. So, but I think if you have that 20 minutes or 30 minutes in the morning just for you, it's almost like meditation. You start the day off right, you kind of calm your brain, you put your emotions in order and what you want to accomplish that day. Because it's 20 minutes or 30 minutes of just thinking about what you want to do that day. Then all you need to do is execute. And then at the end of your working day, or almost at the end, you have your workout and you tack that last box. And then whatever after that is extra, or you spend time with the family.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right? I think if you look at it that way from an entrepreneurial perspective, it's very, very beneficial to have this routine structure every single day. You tack all the boxes, and then after that, you can just kind of kick back. And because last time we talked, Kurt was working how many hours? 18 hours a day, just like I
which
was.
Not anymore. No, I've changed it.
And I'm slowly reducing it also, man. That's why there's less videos.
Yeah, I mean, that was the best advice you've ever given me.
Yeah, because now you work 5 days a week. It's a couple hours a day, right? And you have the weekend over. Yeah, so if you wonder why Kurt is so expensive, he's with Vigorous Steve's.
That's the only reason why I'm so expensive.
Business advice.
But like even there, you know, having that daily motivation or task set up, you know, one of the things even for like cognitive health, to take like a spin off here, I had an interaction with someone at the clinic, very highly successful individual, but was sort of complaining of, you know, brain fog, almost like ADHD type symptoms. And when you start to explain to them about, you know, I always forget the name of who developed it, but it's a priority matrix. And it's basically like, you know, important, urgent, non-important, urgent, non-important, not urgent, non-important, forget about it, or whatever it is. But it's basically like, rather than having a task sheet of like 10 tasks on a piece of paper, it's like, oh, well, which one do you do like number one first? You literally assign these tasks into like, you know, urgent, important, you must do today. You know, non-urgent, important, you'll get to at some point. And then, you know, the other two boxes are basically, well, how can I either get rid of this or how can I delegate it to someone else? And eventually...
Just going to say this, delegate first.
Yeah,
in the morning.
You end up seeing, you know, okay, urgent, important, these are like the 4 tasks that I have to do out of 10. The others, split them out. If you do that, you know, every morning on a, you know, I have like to-do planners, to-do lists, then I'll create the matrix on, okay, well, this is what I need to do today. That easily then stops you being overwhelmed on like, oh, I've got a list here of like 15 things that I've carried over from the previous days. If you're the type of person that makes lists, start creating that matrix. And then you'll have, you know, your urgent, important stuff, do them immediately in the next sort of 2 days, and then the rest of it, you know, get to them, but don't start creating longer and longer lists where it just becomes chaos, because you will procrastinate. You'll think of anything, you'll think of anything but that list because it's overwhelming. And
by the end of the day, you're not finished yet, and then you hate yourself for the last couple of hours you're spending with your wife or kids or going to the gym even. So you gotta, you know, consolidate that list. And this is why I like personal assistance so much, because everything that I don't want to do, I just delegate to my PA right away. And then at least there's 5 jobs already taken care of. Right? Or to my editor or whatever. Like this podcast is going to my editor, obviously. So all I need to do is go through it, do the overlays, and then delegate it. And then it's out of my hands. And whenever he's done, he's done. But I don't have to worry about it. So all these, now we go more into entrepreneurship, obviously. But like all these little things, as you get more and more busy, you streamline your business. And then at one point, you have a team working for you, or a small team, whether that's the wife or, a former client that has, some potential to help you out. Like all these little things, they contribute. And of course, it takes several years. I mean, Dean has been part of this industry very long. I have. And Kurt is basically just showing his head around the corner, like all this knowledge. And now he's getting into this, like, hey, I'm here, But you'll see that at one point you'll have to, kind of delegate stuff. But it's already good that it's moving upwards.
I already have people that I'm paying to do stuff.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Yeah. Good. Yeah.
The Eisenhower decision matrix. If you put that into Google, you'll get a template. We'll put that in here if you want to see it. The Eisenhower decision matrix. But basically, anything that's in your urgent, important box, do it now, and then. Not urgent, important is schedule it at some time to do it. And then the others are basically not important, urgent, delegate it. And then not important, not urgent, just get rid of it, eliminate it. It's not something that you need to do.
Yeah. And sometimes you have stuff that sits there for 3 months and then you do it. And then people are like, why did it take you 3 months to reply? So it's not important, not urgent. Sorry about that. I put you in the last little column. Good to hear from you again, Steve. It's been 3 months. Oh, sorry. Yeah. So these little things you can just delegate. I usually do because response time is important. And the funny thing is, like, if you plan your fasted cardio at a certain period of time, like I wake up at 12 and then I do my cardio at 2. The reason for that is that I need some time to kind of wake up, and then I have some pre-cardio injections, Carnitine, testosterone, that kind of shit. And then an hour later I do cardio. So I have like a 2-hour window where I can get all the urgent and important stuff done. It's mostly emails, like money-making opportunities. I get that all out the door, and then I do my cardio and set myself up for success the rest of the day. And the rest is just basic execution. Like, I don't have real clients anymore, so I can just basically schedule stuff as I need it. I do my consultations at the end of the day, usually around 12 o'clock midnight, which is 4 hours before bedtime. Unless I have the occasional European or Australian that wants to do it at 1 o'clock. So I get that done before I do my cardio. So you get really, really productive that way. And then basically the entire evening, besides the day, now it's cutting into wifey time, but that's okay. Like the entire evening from, let's say, 7 to 12, I can spend on my wife. Yeah. So that really helps. Let's move over to this SS31 before all the PED guys doze off. Yeah. So I've used SS31, but it's also a mitochondrial peptide. You have MOTS-c that basically manipulates your body into providing nutrition for the mitochondria, but SS31 actually manipulate the mitochondria themselves, just like SLU-PP-322. That's the full word of it. Yeah. Now, the problem with SS31 is that you need about 5 to 10 milligrams per day for it to be really effective. And at 5 to 10 milligrams per day, you spend about $25 to $75 per day.
Yeah.
Which, this is the reason why I didn't continue it after 2 weeks, because I ran 5 milligrams for 2 weeks. And even though it looks so promising on paper, and I trust my source 100%, the MOTS-c that I get from them is absolutely phenomenal. At 5 milligrams per day, spending, I think, $30 a day, I did not get so much benefit out of it on top of the MOTS-c, the NAD+, the NMN, and the ubiquinol, the PQQ, and shilajit fulvic acid. What I think is a more cost-effective approach is methylene blue. Okay. Because, again, SS31 also provides, it's basically an antioxidant provider, right, to upregulate mitochondrial function that way. So I would say that based on the research that I've done, even though I haven't used methylene blue myself, I would say that methylene blue is a much more cost-effective method. That's on the way, so we'll start that sometime next week. But it might be good to run SS31 and methylene blue and MOTS-c and SLU-PP-322 all at moderate dosages, because, again, they go through different mechanisms, even though the antioxidant benefits are present with all of them.
Methylene blue seems interesting to me. I don't know much about it, except it's used as a testing chemical for dairy products. I didn't realize we're using it as a supplement.
Oh, yeah. It was originally microscope stain as well.
It's a stain.
I just know of it as a laboratory chemical, not.
So there's 2 stains. There's DNP, that's yellow. That uncouples mitochondrial function, and methylene blue that kind of upregulates mitochondrial function, and that's, So you either got to choose what you want.
What about both? I'm kidding.
I think methylene blue.
You'll turn into the Hulk.
Yeah. I tell you what, don't methylene blue mixed with an activated B complex will make you see shamrocks when you go to the bathroom.
Really?
Put it that way. When the blue and mixes with the yellow. Queen.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, it's on the way out, so that's not the end of the world. It's still better than eating beets and thinking that you have to go to the hospital.
Yeah. I mean, methylene blue, when you actually look at the research, Kurt, it was actually developed as a man-made pharmaceutical as well. So it's a very old historical chemical that was sort of forgotten about. Now they're starting to really start to do more research on it for, I think Parkinson's is the latest sort of venture with it. And that's for neural health, and obviously being an MAO inhibitor.
Yep.
It also has effects over onto opioid receptor, I think, expression as well. So I've had, some people ask me questions who are taking, opioid antagonists like methadone or for opioid treatment, and methylene blue is contraindicated there because of being an MAO inhibitor, you're going to have serotonin effects. Using opioid antagonists also have MAO type properties, so you end up with potential serotonin issues. But
and it has an overlapping effect with kratom, being an opioid
Makes sense.
agonist.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind.
Are people still using kratom?
You'd be surprised.
Wow.
The amount of kratom addiction that I see.
Wow.
It's astounding. It's like post-finasteride and libido issues. It's insane. It's still
not
very
sure why
popular in
you'd
the
wanna
US.
use it.
No. Well, that's a subject for a different video.
Yeah.
So I think that methylene blue is very, very promising. I just never got around to using it by myself. But you've used it already, right, Dean? Like, what is your protocol? 5, 10 milligrams?
10 milligram capsules, and I use it 3 times per week.
Yeah.
And I use it on the days when I use Dihexa, 10 milligrams of Dihexa. Obviously, Dihexa is an angiotensin 4 peptide for neurogenesis. But between the two of them, as prep, obviously the nootropics have had some level of effect alongside the mitochondrial health, but those two together, one side is creating more neural branches, the other side is like super oxygenating your mitochondria and obviously helping with MAO and inhibition. So you've got prolonged dopamine and serotonin transmission. Your mood is just elevated naturally from the methylene blue. You will see people who use methylene blue in terms of like drops or, a sort of a troche. But to be honest, the absorption rate of it, whether it's, from the GI or through, obviously if you do it through your tongue as a drop, buccal membrane absorption is going to be a lot higher. 10 milligrams orally, and whatever doesn't get used and obviously is broken down. You do get, protocols that will tell you to use enough methylene blue until you are peeing blue out of your body, because obviously you're excreting out it unchanged. But
that's mostly for endurance. So we're talking about 50 to 100 milligrams. The downside of 10 milligrams methylene blue daily or more is that over time it lowers hematocrit, similar to nattokinase, serrapeptase, lumbrokinase, or even high-dose enalapril. So this is something you have to worry about. Like it can be very oxygenating, and thus as a compensatory method, your body can reduce hematocrit. So I feel that a low-dose methylene blue, like what Dean is doing, like 10 milligrams a couple times per week, or maybe 2 to 5 milligrams sustained, and then in combination with inositol tripyrophosphate, which increases the oxygen affinity of hemoglobin. So your hemoglobin concentration doesn't go up, your hematocrit doesn't go up, your red blood cell count doesn't go up, but the amount of oxygen carrying capacity of the red blood cells increases substantial. And this might be like a little bit of an overcompensation in case you do ramp up the methylene blue, where hematocrit and red blood cell count comes down slightly. So ITTP plus methylene blue for just overall cognition and stamina seems to work very well. And then the Dihexa I didn't know about, but that seems to be an ideal combination. But Dihexa, can you run that multiple times per week? Well, because I found that very stimulating.
Yeah, no, like I said, 2, max 3 times per week is where I've sort of capped it at.
Yeah.
And, you do definitely find a very heightened level of cognition in terms of memory recall with Dihexa, is what I found personally. And also what I found, from utilizing the likes of methylene blue, the nootropics, like my caffeine intake on this prep, it's like 200-300 milligrams per day between, a coffee and maybe pre-workout. I've never had to go, other preps that might have been 500-600 milligrams. And even, in hindsight, and that's sort of what I said on Instagram, once you go above 450 milligrams caffeine, you're not recovering properly, or something's not right energy-wise, that you're just purely crutching yourself to plow through the day, ignoring fatigue.
True.
What's the toxic level of methylene blue? What's the toxic dose?
That's an interesting question. I've never looked at it.
I think it's pretty high.
Is it? Okay.
LD50 of methylene blue.
Because that's the point where the brain turns blue.
So
you see, because methylene blue is used in cases of malaria, I think, and then they ramp up the dosages quite high, and then sometimes the patients pass away. They do the autopsy.
And it actually is blue.
Yeah, it's actually blue.
Wow.
The brain's actually blue.
So you turn into a Smurf.
Yeah, from the inside though.
Oh, from the inside out.
Yeah. The skin gets wider because of its antioxidant properties. And it might turn whiter than glutathione. So me and Dean were Dean was pretty tanned, but me and Dean standing next to each other in Dubai. I mean, I'm like pale as a ghost because I don't tan. And I take pretty high dosages of glutathione. So it was pretty funny to see. It was super funny.
So a rat is 1.2 grams per kilogram LD50. So multiply that by 6, I think it is for a human is the equivalent. So we're looking at 6 grams per kilogram, which is then times 100. So 600 grams for a 100 kilo male.
Okay.
You can see here me and Dean.
Look at that.
It's a bit blurry, but yeah.
Steve, you're huge.
He is huge.
That's what she said.
he really, like, seriously, I keep saying it, but in person he's like big gorilla, basically. Put it nicely. That it's funny when people sort of look at us on social media and they're like, for me anyway, someone come up to chat to me and Steve, and they turned around to me and went, "Oh, I thought you were just a doctor, but you're actually like a serious hardcore bodybuilder." And I'm like, "Oh, all right, thank you very much." And it's funny because at least then they see that what we're doing, like we do, walk the walk as well as talk it. That they sort of often see that, you're here on this sort of platform talking about education, whatever. But when you actually see what you've done personally, they then start to actually respect that, you're applying your knowledge.
That's why it's good to show your face at the expo sometimes, because that's where, everybody of the industry usually is. And then if you can back up whatever you're saying here online by having a great physique and looking healthy, right?
Yeah.
I mean, of course,
speaks fine.
Me and Dean allegedly had the best skin at Vito's gym. Well, we can go into a lot of trenbolone is being used over there. That's for sure. Yeah, a lot of big guys.
When you see
we're not the biggest there. Yeah, I know, just like 2-3 gram cycle skin,
Ooh.
Yeah, it's not so nice. But anyway, that's besides the point. But it's good, like, if you back up what you claim, right? So that's why I always try to go to as many places, or at least here in Thailand when there are shows, to show your face, because it's good. It's good. Plus, the compliments are always nice. Like, hey, Steve, you're so big. It's good to hear that again.
It just drives the muscle dysmorphia even further.
And we don't know how big we are, right? So, like, you can only see how you stack up to other people when you start taking pictures. So I remember I took some pictures with Wesley Vissers. I'm like, it's not bad. Like, Wesley is huge. It's very proportionate. But like in some shots, I'm like, it's not the end of the world. We'll post that workout video, I think, next week. He's just a little bit backlogged with his content.
So don't stand next to John Jewett in photos. I'm just telling you.
Yeah, that's what I heard. Yeah, Paul sent me. He's like huge as fuck.
Me, Paul, and Chase took photos with him, and he made us all look really small.
Even Chase.
He's bigger than Chase, and he was.
Oh shit!
And John was in great shape. This was then whatever that was.
So in the hierarchy, John is basically at the top, right?
Well, he's an open pro. He just won.
Yeah, but he's a PED educator. So out of all the PED educators,
he might be the biggest. Then I'm aware.
He's probably the biggest. Yeah, him and John Meadows, I think, were probably the sauciest looking in real life. Well, he's going to the Mr. Olympia now, so he's qualified. So I guess we won't see him again at the expo.
Nope.
I'll track him down, John.
I talk to him sometime. He's doing well.
Get him to the booth. No obligations like with Animal. Animal won't have a booth, but you just come out, hang out at our booth, load some carbs.
Yeah, I'll text him. He'll come.
Yeah.
Sure
we can all gossip about a certain individual. So, John, why did you improve so much? Well, I let go of the models. So, SS31, Dean, are you going to try it? Because, again, like you said, the scientific evidence is very supportive, but I did not find so much benefit out of it.
I think if I was heading for dialysis, it might be something that I would consider, based on the research. But, like you said, it comes to a point where you have access to all these things. Like, I mean, even we didn't even touch on like Urolithin A is a new one that people are looking at from a supplement perspective to improve mitochondria. But again, what I'm trying to get at here is you could go Urolithin A, MOTS-c, PQQ, CoQ10, NAD, glutathione. You just create this massive list. And then before you know it, you're like, well, which one is working? Which one is worth spending the money on? Unless, I had issues where I was really questioning my mitochondrial health. SS21 is on a pile of nice to know, but not nice to have. So for me anyway, but at least, whoever's listening here, we've touched on the topic. They can delve into the research on how useful it's been with IV for basically prolonging having to go on dialysis in kidney injury. But it's not something that, I'm going to rush out. I have said it to Dominic of Biolabs of, look up, getting, sourced of it. But like you said, it is expensive. And, if you're looking at running it every day at that dose for a month even, could you spend that money on something more appropriate? That's always, it's always going to be your pro and con factor of, well, I'm going to get this benefit, but I have to spend this money. Or I could do these other 5 things for the same money. Which one are you going to choose? So it's, it's interesting. But as time goes on, there's going to be plenty more, I guess, things that we start to consider surrounding the mitochondria themselves. One of the big things that they're starting to understand, like post-heart attack, is oxidative stress to the mitochondria.
Yeah, and the eczema.
Yeah, and so if you have issues then with your mitochondria after having either stroke or a heart attack, your mitochondria in your heart are very susceptible to damage, and it just sets off again another chain reaction of oxidative stress, which then starts damaging the heart cells themselves, which either leads to reduced ejection fraction, heart failure, on top of your sort of impact from the heart attack. That, from what we've discussed here, mitochondrial health, aside from fat loss, your longevity is predicated on protecting your body from it. And especially, you have mitochondria producing, I guess, pro-oxidants, but you've also got then the antioxidants in different parts of the body protecting what they're doing, whether it's inside the cell, inside the nucleus. So it's not just that, reducing oxidative stress keeps your mitochondria happy. You're protecting your DNA, you're protecting your longevity. So it's, there's a whole big picture here of what ultimately coming back to the mitochondria and oxidative stress is protecting you from.
Yeah, and when you look at aging, the natural process of aging, is it that mitochondria that are slowly becoming dysfunctional, causing you DNA damage, which is then, worsening your health? Or is it kind of lifestyle that is aging you, and thus your mitochondria go bad, and this is also, damaging your DNA? So I think if you've got the lifestyle and the mitochondrial health in order, you should technically age a lot slower. Now, can you put a number on that? Probably not. I mean, Dr. Peter Attia and Huberman just did an excellent podcast on NAD+, NMN, and then just longevity stuff, again, on the Huberman lab. And it's very hard to quantify, the rate of aging. It's all the hype now with the Brian Johnson and a couple of these other anti-aging, quote-unquote, gurus or experts, or however you want to call them. But I think if you've got, the basics down of your lifestyle and optimizing mitochondrial health, especially later on in life, I think you've got a lot of bases covered. Yeah. Whether you're a bodybuilder or not.
And that whole side of guys, bodybuilders who are in their 20s and have aged 20 plus years, that's like, without, putting it bluntly, physical aging, we see it, but think about internal aging. You have no, to go and do your organ imaging or whatever, but even then, that's not showing you the crux of the total damage that's being done. So you might, even though it's great packing on tons of muscle tissue, I think, like you said, as we start to move away from probably what we can call the disease span era of bodybuilding, we'll start seeing this health span longevity aspect where people will start realizing you can put on decent amount of muscle mass whilst still maintaining some aspect of longevity. Obviously, you know, mTOR and MPS are always going to be, anti-longevity. They're aging processes because you're speeding up the rate of cellular replication. But can we do it in a controlled fashion where, yes, you accept that, okay, you're going to age slightly by having built more muscle mass, but also that muscle mass plays into your longevity, because the more muscle mass you have, the more, you know, metabolically favorable your body is. And also obviously muscle mass and strength, bone mineral density, all those sort of things. You know, people sort of, when you get into the crux of like methionine restriction and this, that, and the other,
it's not 50 or 60.
You know, it's not even straightforward then at that aspect of like, oh well, let's reduce muscle protein synthesis to improve aging. Well, how are you going to maintain all your muscle mass so you stay strong? So if you have a fall, you're not going to crack your hip and end up in a bed frail. So
yeah, and if you do rapamycin and stuff, I mean, it will also come at the expense of your muscle mass. So, like, what I expect maybe 50 years from now, 100 years from now, is that you have several phases in your life. Maybe the first, like, starting at puberty to about mid-20s, where hormone levels generally start to decline. You have, like, this optimization of muscularity phase, drug-free. Then you might enhance yourself, but also taking care of mitochondrial function and just focusing on early stages of anti-aging, so you don't oxidize and age yourself at a rapid pace while you put on extra muscle tissue. And then from 35 onwards, you're basically just maintaining while slowing the actual rate of aging, maybe with rapamycin or, you know, the DNA methylation in mind and all this stuff. So whatever you built up until the age of 35, it didn't age you any faster. It didn't cause you any oxidative stress, and you probably still look 30 while you're 35. And then from 30 onwards, 35 onwards, you just slow the rate of aging. When you're 40, you look 35. When you're 50, you look 40. When you're 60, you look 45, right? Basically in this step. But this is years away. But I think we're basically laying the foundation for that, because all three of us look way younger than we actually are. You know, I'm sure we're in a much better state of health than most bodybuilders our age, and just people our age in general. But when you compare that to some 25-year-olds or 30-year-olds, man, it's pretty bad, you know.
It's scary.
It's scary, yeah. And we see the blood work of these guys all the time, you know. Yeah. So, and it's never too late. And you can always reverse and focus on mitochondrial health and reduce your oxidative stress and not take so much drugs, because in reality, it's not needed. Yeah. You know, for many guys, unless you want to compete at the highest level. But you know, it's a different story.
Yep. And sometimes you do see what, you know, cosmetically people do sort of de-age when they reduce that stress on their body. You see,
happened to me. You know, happened to me every time when I come off, I de-age. Yep. You know, or you drop it down to TRT. You know, that's why I don't want to run these crazy high dosages anymore. Yeah. And I'm sure when Paul comes off his, you know, pro contest stack, he'll probably de-age a little bit as well. Yep. You know, fill out his face and go back to TRT, because he's also the guy that does like 250 a week, but in reality it's 125 because he keeps forgetting shots. You know? So, I haven't injected in 3 weeks. And then you look at his face and he looks 10 times better, you know? It's just part of the game. Just a lot of steroids just makes you look old. Unfortunately. One more thing I wanted to mention about SS31. I had Dr. Adil Khan on the podcast maybe 6 months ago, and he was using this peptide to kind of improve mitochondrial function in preparation of certain surgeries. So that when the mitochondria are super happy and healthy and the oxidative stress is low, the recovery of particular surgeries is better. So this might be another practical application, especially for stem cells. So if your body is basically in this low oxidative stress and mitochondrially happy place with improved mitochondrial biogenesis, that the stem cells and particular surgeries just have a better outcome. And keep in mind, stem cells in some surgeries are very expensive. So for all of the guys that are thinking about gynosurgery or just another surgery on their organs, it might be good to run like 5 milligrams to 10 milligrams SS31 for 2 weeks leading into that, and really focus on your mitochondrial health with the other stuff we just discussed. Because I do think that the outcome of a surgery is 10 times better if that aspect is covered.
Of course.
Yeah. I mean, even in hindsight, probably some of that mitochondrial aspect played into the recovery from the shingles. You know, thymosin alpha and thymolin peptide use aside, the mitochondria being very efficient, you know, when you're battling off a virus, you're creating a lot of oxidative stress. You know, I've been left with no scarring, no visible presence that I even had shingles this year. And, you know, I put that down to, obviously, I took care of my immune system when it happened with stimulating my thymus gland. But also, I kept my mitochondria happy during that illness.
Cool. All right.
So,
let's move over to insulin.
Okay.
Because I like insulin. Dean, I'm not really sure about. And Kurt is a little bit on the fence about insulin. So I do want to discuss this because instead of us agreeing with stuff all the time, maybe we can
argue.
do it.
We can argue.
Let's do a little debate. So Kurt, what's your stance on insulin? Exogenous insulin, that is.
The short story. If
you can go as long as you like, man.
If you're a big, I mean, I can sum it up pretty quickly. I think if you're a big top pro bodybuilder and you're eating an adequate amount of food that requires it, then by all means, right? It's probably required at the top levels. I have some pros that I coach that don't use it, have never used it. I have other pros that use a significant amount, and I have one pro who is actually sick of using it. And so we're trying to change some things about what he does daily so it reduces his need for it.
Is he now dependent on the insulin because he used it for a long period of time, or?
No, not that I've seen it. I haven't seen blood work off yet. He's healthy otherwise. I think he's just sick of the way he feels on it, the relying on it, eating that much food. Part of the problem is he's training twice a day, every day, 6 days a week. So he's burning thousands of calories a day just moving. So it requires then his calorie intake needs to be ridiculously high.
Right.
So where we actually started was reducing his training load to reduce his calorie need so we could bring that down, and then he needs less insulin. We're going to start there. Whether he'll fully be able to come off while competing at I mean, this is a guy that goes to the Olympia. If he can fully come off, I don't know.
How's his lipase, amylase, the pancreatic enzymes? Are those all normal?
Yeah.
Yeah, so his pancreas is functioning normally, but he's used insulin because of his training volume, and his carbohydrate intake is probably sky freaking high. So you do need a little bit of pancreatic support in that sense. Yeah, and then reducing the training volume and reducing the food, and thus the insulin requirement. Like, did you ever recommend like beta blockers to kind of bring people's metabolism down? Because that's one of the ways I used to do it for the guys that had very high food demands.
Interesting, but you would blunt fat burning though.
Of course. So you would only do it during the off season.
Okay, that's interesting.
So instead of increasing the food again and maybe adding in thyroid hormones, you would just slow the heart rate.
Slowing the metabolism down.
Slowing the metabolism down.
Okay.
Yeah. So instead of Periactin or MK677, right? Once you leverage all options, and physically you can't eat more than 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 calories. And of course, all these simple sugars, might also not be a good idea for visceral fat buildup, regardless of how healthy supposedly the carbohydrate sources that you have, and minimizing fat during that time. Just slow the heart rate down, reduce the sympathetic drive. And you take Nebivolol in the morning or propanolol once or twice per day, depending on if the beta blocker reduces, training output. That would be like the last vector you look into to push people past a certain body weight without increasing their food intake. So instead of upregulating them during contest prep with DNP, you downregulate it.
That's pretty cool.
And it's worked quite well in the past for some of my guys. But of course, that's not the topic at hand. We're talking about insulin.
Yeah.
So what at the highest level?
At the highest level, I'm not opposed to it at the highest level. I think that where I see the problem is the guys that are following this supposed new healthy method, right? Where they're running really, really low doses of androgens, right? And they're adding insulin like immediately, or they're automatically using insulin with growth hormone. Like that thought process to me is really outdated. It's like running T4 with GH for no reason, right? Just because you read it somewhere. And just because medically we see there's a lot of issues with insulin. It's dangerous. It's one of the few things that we do as a community that can kill us or cause serious harm if misused, right? And it's not it's not necessarily sparing the pancreas either long term.
I agree.
Used in non-diabetics. And I think that's where people go wrong. They cite these studies that are done in diabetic people. That's a different scenario. There's not a lot of research done on non-diabetics with insulin because it's not ethical.
It's not needed.
Yeah. Well, you can't.
So why study it?
Yeah, why would you fund that?
It's the same as the metformin studies, right? Most of them are performed in sick people or diabetic people, and there it might extend life. But in healthy people, it doesn't do anything beneficial. Besides maybe lower IGF-1 levels, and if you believe in elevated IGF-1 levels aging you faster, okay, fine. It might have some longevity outcomes, but that's only been proven in animal studies.
Well, I was going to say
then
that's
it's
not
lackluster.
actually disproven in humans, at least in men.
Yeah, so and then it's actually lackluster results. So the reason why I like insulin and low androgens is that from all of the research that I've done and all of the blood work that I've seen, and including my own blood work results, is that there comes a point of diminishing returns with steroids where you still get the results, but that, blood work parameters just turn shit. Right? Lipids go off, liver enzymes go higher, especially if you throw in orals. So I've always felt that that's, with cycle design, it's a step-by-step, right? First, you get used to injecting steroids. You might throw in a low-growth hormone dosage on top of that for the Sinergy. And then at one point, regardless of how much food you're eating, there seems to be a synergistic effect beyond 4-IU's growth hormone or even 2-IU's growth hormone to add in a low amount of long-acting insulin to help with nutrient partitioning. And this way, you just, instead of, relying on endogenous production solo from the pancreas, which has a delayed response to glucose entering the bloodstream, or leucine or isoleucine converting into glucose, you now open skeletal muscle, focusing on insulin sensitivity, right, the entire way through. The muscle cells open, and all the nutrients can flow in, which prevents serum glucose levels from rising, prevents an abnormal amount of insulin being released from the pancreas to the point you get blood glucose fluctuations, what a lot of guys experience with certain carbohydrate sources like oatmeal, for example, or overcooked sweet potatoes or potatoes in general, where in the beginning you get such a great insulin response that you actually get sleepy, which is also not very productive. So you keep your blood glucose levels lower and more stable with a long-acting insulin. And this also seems to optimize digestion, which then improves the ability later on where you need to eat more food. Because instead of food sitting in your stomach and digesting blood glucose fluctuations and then it ends up in the muscle is already receptive 24/7. And I found that this improves nutrient uptake and nutrient partitioning to such a great extent that instead of going over 500 milligram steroids or 1,000 milligram steroids in the off season, you now have a very moderate cycle, a little bit of long-acting insulin and maybe some fast-acting insulin around the workout, and then growth hormone as you see fit. And I'm not against recommending this to guys that are like 70 kilos or upwards, as long as the lifestyle is there.
Correct.
That is the prerequisite, right? You need to have the absolute hardcore bodybuilding lifestyle. Well, what I'm against, just like you, is that the guys start experimenting with insulin
too early
when they have no business experimenting with insulin.
Yeah, that's really that's the crux of it. I think the other it's also going to increase, very low density lipoprotein, right? Formation in the liver. It's going to also, like you said, it's going to open the muscle cells up to nutrients. It's also going to open the fat cells up to nutrients, right?
Yeah,
so
true.
People don't realize that. Right. And just general cholesterol synthesis as well is going to increase from using insulin. You're referring to using Lantus?
Yeah, I prefer Lantus to start. Yeah, Lantus to start, and we're talking about 5-10 IUs upon waking sub-Q. And then, of course, as the caloric intake during the off-season goes up and people get more experience, then you might ramp up the dose with 5 IU increments every day or every other day. So some guys might end up at 25, some guys might end up at 50, but when you're at 50 IUs of Lantus, you're a pretty fucking hardcore bodybuilder with no life besides bodybuilding, injecting and eating and sleeping, So I topped out at one point at 50 IUs.
Wow.
Yeah, but that was also 260 pounds.
Okay. See that, that lines up with what we're saying.
Yeah.
Right? There's a need at some point, perhaps, if you get that far.
Exactly.
And not everyone even has the genetics to get that big. That's the other thing that people don't want to admit that, but not everyone can be a 260-pound bodybuilder.
I was eating 6,000 calories clean every day, with one cheat meal on Saturday. or Sunday, which I could barely eat because I was so full. But my digestion was so good that still at the end of the day, I could still put somewhat of a vacuum. Right? So it's a completely customized diet, following elimination diets and just making sure that everything was cooked fresh, or at least the rice wasn't, heated in the meantime, creating resistant starches, all this kind of stuff that you can follow in a vertical diet from Stand Everything, albeit modified to my individual digestion. With a little bit of long-acting insulin on top of that, and then insulin fast-acting, maybe 2 or 3 workouts a week. That seemed to work quite well.
You were using pre or post or both?
Pre.
Pre, okay.
Pre, yeah, with intra-workout nutrition. So that's high-brand cyclic dextrins, essential amino acids, a little bit of glycerol, and a little bit of creatine. And then you have to space that out because otherwise you get too much water in your stomach.
Yeah.
And then a customized electrolyte. So that's a normal, like a cookie cutter electrolyte formula plus extra sodium and a little bit of extra magnesium to help with dilation of the blood vessels, but not so much potassium, because generally the potassium kind of leaks from skeletal muscle when you're training intense. So that would work very well for me. But of course, that's really the hardcore bodybuilding life. Like, I haven't touched insulin in a very long time because I have no business running it, because I'm a little bit all over the place sometimes.
Yeah, but that's the key statement. What you just said there is the key statement when you have a business running it, right? It's it's one of those things I feel like if you have to ask, you probably don't need.
Yeah, you fucking know.
You know when you need it.
You fucking know. Yeah. And you have to say the fucking in front of it just to emphasize.
You have to.
Yeah, because like, do you consider yourself hardcore bodybuilder enough now to run insulin, or like
me?
Yeah, you.
No,
like, you never run it. You never.
I've never used it. My fasted glucose is 77. I'd be concerned it would kill me. My A1C, the highest it ever goes is a 5. No, and I mean, I can eat, even when I was, last winter when I got up to almost 240 and I was eating an absurd amount of food, my blood glucose never really moved.
No.
Only if I eat something like pizza or something, you see that weird spike hours later because the fat's holding it. But no, and honestly, I don't have any aspiration of doing bodybuilding myself.
Yeah. The hardcore competitive stuff, right? Yeah.
And it would kill me. With one kidney, it's pretty dumb.
Yeah. Yeah. And Dean, you've never touched insulin, right?
I have. I've used it like you in the same sort of fashion of very, very small amount of basal. Again, 10, 15 IUs of Lantus. I guess the way I worked it off is, if we look at like from a pharmacology perspective of how it is prescribed, you're looking at total insulin production being about 0.5 or 0.55 units per kilogram. So the average 100 kilo male makes about 55 IUs of insulin per day. And of that, somewhere between, I think it's 0.5 to 1.5 IUs is made every hour as basal insulin dripped into the system. So if you do 15 IUs of Lantus, you're basically taking away that dripped amount that's going into the system every hour, and it's just staying constant. So from obviously the whole thing about prolonging the longevity of the Langerhans from using basal insulin, yes, there's some flaws to it, but from a nutrient perspective, like what you said, Steve, you're just maintaining that basal insulin in the background, so that the only thing that your body now needs to secrete insulin in response to is meal times. Yeah. So you're using that as a background control and then letting the pancreas pulse out what it thinks it needs based on the deficit from the basal response. I guess where I, disagree with insulin use, and we're probably all going to agree here, is picking a dose like 15 IUs of insulin and chasing it with a carbohydrate meal. Literally just like bang insulin in and chase that blood sugar response with how much food can I physically get in to stop me dying.
Yeah. This is what they did in the 90s, and this is where all the bloated stomachs came from, because Coach XYZ would say you need 20 IUs fast-acting insulin pre-workout, and I would drink 200 grams of glucose to chase it.
And so, we know at this point 1 IU roughly controls, roughly about 10 grams of carbohydrate load. So you know, if you are having an intra-workout drink with 30 or 40 grams of cyclic dextrin, then, you know, 2 or 3 IUs of quick-acting insulin before you train is just taking your pancreas out of the equation. When that spikes, the glucose you're drinking in your bloodstream is just being shuttled away for glycogen synthesis post-workout. So it's helping with post-workout recovery. The thing that obviously most guys then don't respect is the biphasic response of fast-acting insulin. And, you know, I've been caught out here with even 3 IUs matched to 50 grams of cyclic dextrin, where pretty much about an hour into the workout, going hypo from a lactic acid response, where you start to go hypo and then you feel like you want to throw up, that you sort of get that probably imbalance in terms of pH, because of now all of a sudden your blood sugar level is gone quite low.
Right. Yeah.
And now you sort of feel like you want to throw up, but then you can't stand up because you're sitting down trying to stop yourself from throwing up. It's one of the ones that, you know, if you're going to utilize, you know, insulin before training, don't do it before deadlift sessions, and don't do it before leg days. They're like
anything with a belt.
You know, anything in terms of like where you're going to go to excessive stimulation, especially with legs, if you do train to complete failure, that secondary hit, especially how fast you might be burning through glycogen through the workout, that second peak might hit you and you might not be prepared for it, where either you don't have a source of glucose with you, or, you know, quite similarly, you've drank all your intra-workout cyclic dextrin and you're literally hoping that where you're training has some sort of glucose behind the counter to go and get.
That's why I told in my insulin ebook, always have a Gatorade with you, even when you go to the gym and you have intra-workouts, because you might need it.
You don't know.
Yeah, you never know. And it's way faster than eating a Snicker bar or whatever. It just digests too slow. You need to be able to down it right away.
Yeah. And you see it in prep too, when guys bring their food down, right? Your body fat gets lower. You become more efficient at using these things. A lot of them don't need insulin, right? Maybe on a high day. I've had a couple times where you have to remove the insulin. They can't use it anymore during prep.
Well, and the subcutaneous depot is so small that it absorbs 2 times faster.
Yeah.
You know, I would
that's
not.
a good point.
Yeah.
I wouldn't use insulin in a prep setting unless it was sort of like.
I don't ever push it at all, but that's.
Yeah, I usually took it out like 6% body fat, depending on the individual.
You know, unless you really overcooked someone and you really need to fill them out, and even then, you're going to pay the piper in terms of like water retention. That's, you know, a recipe for disaster with open pro bodybuilders is, you know, carb loading someone 3 days out after massively depleting them and go, okay, every meal now we're going to take 50 IUs of fast acting insulin and you're going to have 200 gram of carb meals for the next, you know, 16 hours every 2 hours. You know, first off, you're going to rapidly fill them out, but within about 28 hours, the water retention will catch up and you've now gone from looking full blown to just being a watery seal on stage.
Well, you can't do it if you have a 2-day cleanup.
Yeah, no, this is what I mean. So I you know, personally prefer, even with me now, right? So we're 3 days out from the show. I've carb loaded Monday, yesterday, and now today is another high day.
Yeah.
We'll train, last training day tomorrow. And then I've got Saturday and Sunday back at rest day, baseline, low calories, whatever, to let some of that fluid come off from the carb load. So like fill early. The whole, you know, what they say, fill and spill. I think, you know, Skip Hill or someone come up with fill and spill. You fill early, and if you mess up, you've got a few days to wash that fluid off. Yeah. If you carb load, you know, 2 days out before a show, unless you really know your body, and also the fact that glycogen takes 36 hours to synthesize, that most of the time when you do rapid backload and carb loading, it's fluid. Intracellular fluid is being driven into the tissue, not glycogen. The glycogen catches up with you. Yeah. But that's sort of where guys then miss their peak, because they end up with this look from rapid backloading, which is predictable. Oh, you look amazing. And then as the day goes on with judging, the glycogen starts being formed properly. And that's when you start seeing the physique get watery and watery and watery. Do it early in the week, create your look, fill out, whether that's, you know, a small bit of fat for intracellular, you know, triglycerides, intramuscular triglycerides, and then carbs after that. But give yourself a few days time to reset the look to speak.
Right. Take some of the inflammation from the training away by reducing the intensity, and then if you want to fill out a little bit more, that's what the Anadrol or halotestin is for. Yeah, Superdrol, whatever is for, you know. So.
You know, like that last show I done, I ate nothing the day of the show, like what we discussed.
Yeah, that works very, very well because you have no insulin secretion. So you stay lean the entire day. It sucks after prejudging because you look better, but you feel a little bit low, you know, after prejudging usually.
No, like what I had was I knew how I looked. So normally what I was doing was training with no food in me, and then I'd drink my intra-workout drink. So 30 grams cyclic dextrin, EAAs, electrolytes, glutamine, creatine. Literally, what I done on show day was from about 90 minutes before I knew I was going on stage, started doing the exact same protocol as training, start sipping on the intra-workout, get pumped up. I'm going to replicate how I looked in the gym from following the same protocol. No massive bloat, rehydrating myself, being able to have full control of my midsection on stage, and know that you're sort of balancing out, you know, the fluid you need to recreate that look.
Yeah.
You don't need, like, you know, if you're eating on show day, first off, the food is going nowhere. It's not going to magically fill out your muscle tissue. So all you're doing is just being gluttonous of, I'm going to stuff my face now because today's show day. Say that for the next day when you don't need to get on stage. Yeah, okay, sure enough, you eat, you know, salted chips or whatever backstage.
I was just going to say, I was so veiny. Yeah, that's the salt, bro. That's
the salt and a little bit of fat has now raised your blood pressure, and all of a sudden you become more vascular. It's done nothing to fill you out.
No.
You know, in theory, it might dry you out a little bit as the sodium starts pulling fluid out of tissue. Normally, me personally anyway, and it does be a bit of a burden, all the way up until I get out on stage, I have to, when I start pumping up, I have to start going to the bathroom, because as I start pumping up, you're pulling fluid around the body, and it's, you know, obviously ending up in the kidneys and you're excreting out. So I know when I start pumping up, I'm going to get even drier and drier because of I'm pushing some of that fluid out. That, you know, if you have high sodium and that, and you're really trying to take advantage of getting drier and drier as you try to peak for the stage, it's just adding another variable. And looking vascular on stage, no one cares how vascular you are. If your quads are riddled in veins, but you can't see any detail,
who cares?
You know, judges aren't going to be looking at, that guy's covered in veins, but where's the separation? Where's the definition?
They probably thought that you spilled.
Yeah.
I just use a little bit of sodium the morning of just to get the blood pressure normal.
Yeah.
What I do personally as a trick, about 15 minutes before I go on stage, raw local honey from, we have a beehive literally around the corner from us. A woman harvests her own honey. So raw local honey, 15 grams mixed with 2 grams of sea salt. So you're getting about 600, 700 milligrams of sodium, small little bit of glucose from the raw honey that has the digestive enzymes to help with the absorption of the glucose from the honey. Within about 10, 15 minutes, again, you feel nice solid contractions, but again, that sodium is going around, little spike in blood pressure, but also pulling fluid with it to, again, help you get drier and drier to stage.
Yeah.
And that's literally the only food, if you wanted to put it that way, I'd have about 15 minutes before going out on stage.
And then it all digests well, so if you do that for prejudging, then a couple hours later for final, you can do it again. There's no gastrointestinal distress, there's no bloating, and you can still pull a deep vacuum because it's so calorically dense.
Yeah, but that's, I think, where you see a lot of these horrible results. You look at the stage photos now, these guys are all just washed out, right? Because they just try to carb up at the end.
Especially for finals.
That's what I don't know. That's why with Paul, I pulled his food. I think he gave 50 grams of carbs the day before. He just didn't need it. You fill it out, it's not a thing the night before.
No, all you have to do is maintain conditioning, and then maybe you need a little bit of fullness for the stage, but that's usually an electrolyte thing, especially if you use diuretics.
Yeah.
And then you have to see which diuretics you use to restore which electrolytes.
Yep.
So if you use IV Lasix, it's a different electrolyte protocol than if you use a hydrochlorothiazide. That's just sodium.
Yep.
Normally, what I, me personally anyway, is when you contract your muscles on show day. If you can't feel that contraction, you need more sodium. Simple as that. Once your muscular contraction diminishes, you need some fluid, but you need some sodium first. So sodium goes in first. Wait, 20 minutes, keep checking either biceps, tense and hard, or pecs, or capsy or delts. Keep checking for that strong muscular contraction that you get regularly. And if that's present, you know that your sodium balance is now right, that everything is contracting hard. Then start trickling in a little bit of fluid to stage. But you should be paying attention to, like, if you're flat on show day, like flat in inverted commas, you're flat because you've got not enough sodium in your body to basically help control, obviously, blood volume, which obviously then helps with the muscular contraction side of things.
Yeah. Yeah, or you're late with your glycogen storage because you started loading 2 days before, which is also common. And then they take the diuretics the night before, and then the potassium is gone because the potassium isn't even storing yet.
Yep.
So if you contract, it's hard, but you cramp, you contract and it's stuck. And then you know that the potassium, I see that happen. You coach at the World Championships, you see everything happen. You see all the mistakes. That's why I always brought tonic water with me, so people could get some free quinine from me to prevent the cramping. I would just bring a case because all these Arabs and these Indians would overdo it. Yeah. So Dean, Kurt, there's no morning of the show pancakes with blueberry jam and then 10 IUs of fast-acting insulin. So that's not the way to go.
Not for me. No.
No, not.
Save it for the next day.
We've learned the lesson. If anything, what's probably helping with the look of the old 90s was the localized shots of Esacline and whatever else was going into muscularly, as opposed to backloading insulin.
Yeah, that does more than the insulin itself.
So, I think we've sort of have some consensus there on insulin use. I do agree, like what Kurt said. Sometimes, another area where I find some benefit to it is looking at, I guess, insulin function in women. And obviously when it comes to like PCOS, sometimes using a small amount of basal insulin to control blood glucose. If, let's say, if HbA1c is elevated, and the average blood glucose is elevated with it, using a basal insulin in the background, again, it comes back to like what Kurt said. If you use basal insulin and the insulin sensitivity is poor and you don't do anything to support that insulin sensitivity, you're just causing more havoc with fat gain and whatever else.
Yeah.
But true. You can be a little bit intelligent knowing that if you put that basal insulin in, you're removing that sort of reliance on the pancreas having to adjust every hour to produce a level of insulin that for women with metabolic dysfunction, until you sort of correct some of the underlying inflammation, the androgen sort of dominance, the estradiol dominance, sometimes a small amount of long-acting insulin on top of like HIIT cardio, caloric restriction, reduced carbohydrate, you're just removing how the pancreas is trying to respond on two fronts, where that is every hour or after every meal. But that's not to say, similar to that when we have a discussion like this, that every person coaching a female with metabolic dysfunction, long-acting insulin, straight away, 20 IUs, straight in.
That's what they just heard. That's what they just heard, Dean.
Yeah,
that's what they're going to do.
And that's the selective hearing side with that. You can't just build a standardized protocol like that of, use the long-acting insulin. Each person, there's merit there to utilizing that setting, but you need the background information of it. And, in terms of blood work, most people never check HOMA, HOMA, and the HOMA percentage, which shows you how efficient your beta cells are and how from the HOMA score, you can then create a HOMA-IR percentage, which is your insulin resistance percentage. You would not give basal insulin to someone with a high HOMA-IR score because they're insulin resistant. You'd want to optimize improving insulin sensitivity first, whether that is by going back to our friends, the mitochondria, doing, high intensity glycolytic anaerobic cardio in order to train that glycolytic pathway again, doing maybe potential, reductions in carbohydrate, but also bearing in mind that it's like a double-edged sword, because when you reduce carbohydrate, you can't just reduce carbohydrate and then in tandem raise fat intake to create a calorie balance. Because when you raise fats, you're going to create insulin sensitivity problems with it, depending on the type of fat. So there's, there's a very fine balancing act here as well when you're trying to improve that IR score.
And the funny thing is, most carbohydrate sources come with micronutrients that help with insulin sensitizing pathways. So magnesium, B vitamins, right? Those are all very essential.
In nature.
Yeah, exactly. So if you reduce the carbs and you're not compensating for the lack of micronutrients that you're now having, then you're still not improving insulin sensitivity, right? Vitamin D, magnesium, B vitamins, just proper electrolyte intake, that all needs to be in place for you to have the best possible insulin sensitivity. Even iron and zinc contribute to a certain extent. So a lot of guys that think, okay, we're going to reduce or improve the insulin sensitivity by increasing metformin and then reducing the carbs, or you're not fixing anything. Yeah, just make it worse, because now you're not absorbing anything. Yeah.
Well, on a basic level, what the difference between type 2 and type 1, right? Type 2 is you're insulin resistant. That's not a pancreatic issue. That's a cellular issue that they're not addressing, right? That's why we say with bodybuilders, it's generally not the pancreas that's the problem. It's the cells aren't taking the glucose. By forcing more insulin in isn't necessarily going to do what you want it to do, right? You cause more harm versus type 1, the pancreas just doesn't work.
Yeah, that's how you get visceral fat buildup, because the insulin sensitivity is so bad that it's spilling over. So you either get fat, but with the growth hormone, you get this lipolytic process. And so the body fat doesn't really go up. So you're taking high dosages of growth hormone and high dosages of insulin, and now all of this extra fat is just going to the visceral space. Yeah. So this is what the 90s was basically. That's just an age of insulin resistance. Basically. And some of these guys still have visceral fat buildup.
Yeah.
I mean, you can see it in the guys that are now 50, 55. They still have distended stomachs. It looks horrible.
I guess the other thing from an insulin sensitivity perspective, and again, it's a whole other topic, then would be like GLP agonists, where you're just making the insulin work better, or you're making, GIP work better. And that, there's some merit there, from a hormone perspective, again, with females with PCOS or insulin resistance, using a GLP-1 agonist or a GIP agonist to help improve their insulin sensitivity from that aspect. And obviously that reduces appetite, which allows you to control, caloric intake. But, that then becomes like a perfect storm, like again, selective hearing. Let's add, tirzepatide or retatrutide with long-acting insulin and whatever, metformin, and start chucking everything else at it. That it can't just be a standardized protocol for everyone. And that's, we've spoken even there with preps. Everyone's going to have a different way of doing things based on their biochemistry. True.
So I think, like, to bring it all back, I think there's nothing wrong with insulin if you live the lifestyle, which means you're doing the daily fasted cardio for insulin sensitivity purposes and for nutrient partitioning purposes. You're eating all those meals, 4, 5, 6, however many you need, all home cooked, following an elimination diet so it doesn't sit in your stomach, it actually digests properly. These are all nutritious meals with the proper micronutrients, and you cover whatever micronutrient deficiency you have with over-the-counter supplements to make sure that the insulin sensitivity stays the same. You don't have to change the numbers of 10 IUs or 1 IU of insulin with 10 grams of carbs. It can be 1 IU, 20 grams, 30 grams, 40 grams, whatever. I would still prefer people to start with long-acting insulin over a fast-acting insulin, because there's less that can go wrong, assuming that the dosage is moderate. And if you live the lifestyle, you follow these simple steps, I don't think that there's anything wrong with that, but it could take you a decade before you get to that point.
That's it.
It took me 15, 20, so I started using insulin when I was about 32. So that's after almost 20 years of bodybuilding. Yep. That's when I felt I needed. Then the first 11 years was drug-free, so how much did I progress? Not as much. But it was still 5, 6 years into my drug journey, a performance-enhancing drug journey, before I added in the insulin. And before that, I tried all the steroids and the growth hormones and the thyroid medications. I did the elimination diet and blah, 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 blah. I did all the shit that you're supposed to be doing. And then I added it in and I got great success. And I was able to go from 240 with, higher dosages to 260 with much lower steroid dosages. And I think that's what the difference is. You could just, do with less steroids.
Yep. And of course, we ended up all agreeing again.
Fuck.
Pretty much, in terms of.
I hate you guys.
We'll have to do more on like religion or politics or something.
They'll probably agree also.
I think, people are waiting for us to come to a point where there's a big friction set between us. But, I think we've been around this long enough that we see the sort of pros and cons. There is very cautious things, and especially like what we've said, the main thing not to mess with if you do not understand it is fast acting insulin, because aside from the gym you could do it and then that second peak hits you driving your car, and at that instance it's not just you who's going to potentially have a problem, it could be whoever else is on the road at that time, whether it's pedestrians or other cars. So do yourself a favor and really understand, what these things are going to do in your body before you even attempt it. Like you said, Steve, you could probably do, not that I suggest, but like 80 IUs of Lantus and probably not really feel hypoglycemic. But there is always that risk. So again, starting at the very low part if you're going in with long acting to start.
Yeah, if you do 4 to 8 IUs of Humalog, it's very realistic. And how many pro bodybuilders have crashed their cars after going to the gym? Right? They don't disclose if they were using insulin, but there's a staggering amount of pro bodybuilders. Frank McGrath, for example, he crashed his car. Right? Then there's a couple other guys that actually died from this, crashing their car after the gym.
Didn't Ronnie Coleman, when he was a police officer, didn't he pass out? Right, and the guy pulled over, luckily saved his life. I think they're still friends today.
Yeah.
Right, he was slumped over, and he asked the guy to get him some food out of his cooler.
Yeah. And I've seen it happen in my hardcore bodybuilding gym where guys are just sitting, eating their meals and slumping over. I'm like, let's get him a Gatorade. This before I ever used insulin, But I knew what was going on. So, it's more common than you think, So it needs to be respected. And before you build up that respect, you probably need to cycle through a couple anabolic steroids and use some growth hormone and use some ephedrine and clenbuterol to the point you get palpitations and like, oh shit, my heart is going to explode. Because the insulin is basically end stage, just like DNP and EPO. Well, they can kill you fast if you fuck it up.
Yep.
The other stupidity that I'll touch on here is telling bikini girls using carnitine, injectable L-carnitine, to take fast-acting insulin with the carnitine to help the carnitine work better.
Before fast cardio, right?
I've seen this. So do your 100 milligram shot of L-carnitine and take 1 or 2 IUs of Nova Rapids and go do your cardio. And then obviously
I've done fasted, this, but at 250.
But fasted, and obviously you'd probably understand when that symptom of hypo is coming on that, okay, I have my protocol in place here that if this does happen, Gatorade or fast-acting sugar. Imagine like a hardcore bikini athlete of, yes, coach, whatever you say, coach, does this and then just drops off, either has an accident where they just fall off a Stairmaster or drop off the treadmill, or again, worse again, driving their car. Like,
I've only done it at home. When I did 2 IUs fast-acting insulin before, and it's intramuscular too. But I had a glucometer with me and Gatorade, and I would only do it at home. So if I do get to a point of crazy hypoglycemia, then I know how to pull myself out of it.
I have, for anyone.
Is it risky? Yes, but I barely recommend this shit.
This is on my phone. This was at my peak with insulin. That was,
oh my God.
That was what, 238?
Wow, look at that.
Now that
238. Oh my God.
238, and that was with...
You look 45 years old there.
Exactly.
What's your height, team? How tall are you?
5'10", just under 5'10".
Yeah.
That was the biggest. That was the biggest I ever got, and that was sort of where Morgan went to me. You're not getting any bigger. And I was like, oh, right.
Yeah, I'm 5'7", and when I was 240, my wife was like, "Whatever you're doing, please stop."
Yeah, my wife said it at 260. She said, "You're not getting top of me like this." I hate that all that sweat in my eye.
she reined me in of basically, bear in mind that you're doing classic bodybuilding. You're getting to a point where you're really getting beyond your cap here. So, but that was when I introduced that off season. That was the last off season before the sort of 2022 prep when I won. That was 20 IUs of Lantus. But like my carbohydrates were up at like 950 at one point. And that was like 950 like continuous. That it didn't even do too much in terms of like helping my appetite. It was just more so, again, I'm just letting this run in the background so that I know it's facilitating a job and let my pancreas deal with the insulin production itself. Because that wasn't even the only time I used mealtime insulin was, again, pre-workout. I think it was 50 or 60 grams of cyclic dextrin, and I was doing 3 IUs of fast-acting insulin with it. So, again, avoiding that on deadlift and back days. So it was really only on my sort of upper chest day and then at an arm day back then as well. So,
yeah, I think I did like 5 to 10 IUs Humalog postprandial of the meal that I would have about 1.5 hours before the gym. So it would start to peak in the gym, and then I would have my inter-workout of about 50 high-brand cyclic dextrins and 20 essential amino acids, 5 grams of creatine and 5 grams of glycerol, just to keep the pump going, because I would be afraid of going hypo, right? I would have 150 grams of carbs in the meal with 10 IUs of insulin, or 5 to 10 IUs, depending on the workout. And then I would have my inter-workout shake to kind of keep me over, to prevent hypoglycemia, because I knew it would happen from the meal, because even the rice with a little bit of, what is it called? The chicken stock, low FODMAP chicken stock to kind of help with the digestion. That would not always hold over the entire workout, even at 5 IUs.
Yeah.
So I would have the inter-workout just to kind of prevent me from going hypo. But man, those workouts were crazy pumps, super strong. Yeah, good times. All the worst part was getting all the weights all over the gym.
Yeah, I don't miss those days of like loading a leg press up with like 20 plates, like 10 plates aside, trying to plate collector from around the gym.
The best thing I did was just slow the reps down, man. I just do 6 plates in the leg press instead of 12, 11. And just screaming on top of my lungs and bracing for dear life with Anadrol and insulin and stuff. And now I just do a moderate cycle, 6 plates maximum, and just
go slow.
4 seconds down, 1 second at the hole, 2 seconds to the top, a little press at the against the machine, because I set it just in a way where I could just hit the top, so you have like maximum resistance. And then you go back and you do 12 reps, 15 reps, and then after that you don't know where you are. That was yesterday, and my legs are locked up right now. It's great.
Yeah. I mean,
I should take some insulin for the recovery. Fuck.
And that goes even back to like what we talked about with the rep tempo. I've done stupid things where I've nearly cut myself in half with a leg press. I think we talked about this before, maybe the first podcast. It was a prep, the last prep I done with Morgan. I was like 2 weeks out from the show. I had 600 kilos on the leg press. The leg press had no safety stop. It was a Watson leg press.
Can go all the way down, right?
Yeah, and no one was spotting me. And I looked at the logbook, and again, this is your mentality on prep back then of logbook. 600 kilos, 7 reps last week. Oh, this is going to be easy. How the warm up went. Got to rep 4, no problem. Like thinking in my head, this is going to be nice and easy. Rep 5. As the weight came down, I got that feeling of I don't have the power to push this back up. You know that feeling when you know that your muscle just doesn't have the power? And no word of a lie, I felt like my life flashed before my eyes. And I swear, when they talk about people having like superhuman strength, I fully believe it, because I literally grabbed the handles and I let out this big massive scream, and the weight just shot up, racked it. And I'm literally there sitting in the chair, like shaking. Morgan's at the other end of the gym and she runs down and she's like, what went on there? I'm like, I just nearly cut myself in half with the leg press. That's what nearly went on. And after that, that taught me, never to be stupid again with preps, with weight or whatever.
But did you press the weight up or did you grab yourself so tightly that you just launched the platform up?
When
Squeeze
they
your
say,
butthole so tightly that it just...
when they literally say that your life, you get this sort of dread of you're dead, basically. Because, the Watson leg press literally comes down to the seat. Ooh. So if I wasn't pushing this up, my legs were literally going behind my head.
We've seen those videos on Instagram.
And, even thinking back, it just brings shudders of... That was the one moment where I remember writing in the logbook, don't ever be so effing stupid again. I wrote, and I still have that logbook of writing that in it, of, reminding me never to do stupid things like that again.
Send me a picture so I can overlay it.
Yeah, I'll find it upstairs.
Yeah, we got it like 10 days before this goes live. So if we can overlay it, that would be great. Yeah, I've the same, man, where you do silly stuff like that. But it's fun, though. I think we all need to go through that so we kind of test our limits, right? We're stupid men after all. Right? And I think you need to go there to kind of push the boundaries and then see where you definitely should not push any further. Whether that's with dosages or with food intake or with weight, women.
Now,
this girl is pretty fucking toxic for me. The blonde bimbo said, "Never again." Just once, twice to confirm. Twice. And then after that, you can get married.
Now, anytime I use any leg press, it has to have like the safety stop where it'll stop, where you can set it up that'll stop just before you crush yourself.
Yeah.
That, no matter where you take the set to, if it does go wrong, it'll stop. Like your knees might be pressed against your chest, but you're not getting split in half.
Yep, that's okay. Yeah. That's why one of the reasons why I prefer not to do bench press anymore. Yeah, because you can get stuck,
Yeah.
And then, especially when I train, there's not so many people in the gym anymore, and the people that are there, I wouldn't trust lifting the weight off properly. They'll pick it up backwards, and as you're pressing, you just dislocate your shoulder. So, machines, man, are free weights. It's that simple. Anything else we want to discuss for this episode, or you want to save it for next month?
Maybe save the beta 2 stuff, beta 3 for next one, right? Because that's a pretty long, probably longer than insulin.
Yeah, I think so. And I'm running this new compound, Mirabegron. So it's a beta 3 receptor agonist.
That's how did you get that? That's the one I told you about, Kurt, if you remember.
Yeah.
Anti-bladder medication.
Yeah, I was going to say it's for pregnant women, right?
Yeah, so it's a bladder. So somebody at the Vigorous Q&A recommended it to me, and in the Vigorous Q&A, I'm like, oh, I've never heard of that before. Beta 3 receptor agonist, it might be beneficial, and I'm familiar with Nabivolol, right? That's a beta 1 block and a beta 3 agonist, and you might get some overlap on that. And I never really liked clenbuterol because it just stimulates your heart rate too much, even with Nabivolol in the picture. So I look at the Thai database and it's available. So I send my pharmacist a message, hey, do you have Mirabegron? So I ordered it the next day. And honestly, it's the best fat burner I've ever used.
Wow. Yeah, because I discovered it in 2018. And that was sort of the conversation we done a podcast, me and Kurt, about the fat burn effects of clenbuterol. And it was Mirabegron on the beta 3 receptor research. That was like, clenbuterol does have beta 3 affinity, but it's not the same.
Not the same.
And I could never find Mirabegron to personally trial it out. So this is very interesting.
I can bring it to America. Come to Thailand. Come to Thailand. Just make sure you're not on prep, and then I'll take you to some nice restaurants that don't have gluten. But no, so it's available here. It's like, I think one box is like $40, so it's way more expensive than clenbuterol. But I have zero side effects. 50 milligrams pre-cardio, 50 milligrams before the workout. And it feels like if you're taking like 12 milligrams albuterol regarding the feeling that like the focus and the contraction, but it has skin tightening effects. So I feel that everything is just sucking inwards, which normally I wouldn't get. With clenbuterol, you get loose skin, right? But this one is tight because it works on the beta 3 of the adipose tissue. body temperature just go up, so you sweat buckets. That's a bit of a.
And then I'm wondering then, does you probably didn't, your nighttime urinary frequency probably reduced as well because it's an anti-bladder medication.
So now I can finish a whole bottle. I don't have to go to the bathroom. Previously, I had to go every hour, but now I go every 2 hours, so I can finish the Q&As or the podcast, no problem. But then when you go, it's like Austin Powers. You know the scene, right?
Yeah.
He comes out of hibernation and he stands there for the entire opening credits. So that's how it is. So after this, I'll go to the bathroom and I'll sit there for 5 minutes just pissing up a storm, and it'll be a full fucking bottle. But it's convenient because it allows you to sleep longer. So I only go to the bathroom twice instead of 3-4 times.
Yeah, very interesting.
I just drink a lot of water. I got these air conditionings blowing. I get dry mouth from the nootropics. And I just guzzle water all day. So I drink about 10 liters. But the less time I go to the bathroom, the better. Yeah. So I think it's a very interesting fat burner that basically makes clenbuterol obsolete.
Yeah, from a selective lipolysis perspective, most definitely.
Yeah, and then of course, if you upregulate mitochondrial function with MOTS-c, SLU-PP-322, and methylene blue, then you can basically have a side effect-free fat loss phase.
True.
Without all this just hardcore forcing your heart rate up, whether that's with an ECA stack or clenbuterol or albuterol for that matter, or DNP. Fuck that.
Yeah.
No DNP.
No DNP. So yeah, I think that's one of the most exciting finds that but somebody recommended it, and maybe that was after watching your podcast, but he said, I'm a medical student, look into Mirabegron, we prescribe it in our clinic, and you'll probably find it very beneficial. And yes, it is shit, isn't it? So with your experiment on SLU and my experiment on Mirabegron, I think we're
meet in the middle.
We're opening some doors.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we're opening some doors because you haven't used any fat burners this prep, right?
The only one that we talked about was 40 micrograms of clen.
Oh, you still use
okay, yeah. But to be honest, when I was away, that came out. But by the time, like what I talked with Kurt, by the time you get to week 3, the heart rate effect of clen is washed off because obviously the beta 2 down regulates. You're still getting the beta 3 aspect for the lipolysis, but if you can take Mirabegron that has no effect on your heart rate and it's causing lipolysis, win-win.
It's win-win. It's absolute win-win. Skin texture improves just the same like clenbuterol, but it's tighter. All right, so on 3 milligrams Robolcine and 10 IU's growth hormone, I would expect to be a lot more, fluffy, but it's minimal. It's minimal. So let's dive into that the next time. I think 2 hours is good. Yeah. This was absolute great. People are always looking forward to these episodes, as many people tell me in real life now, including in Dubai. So that's good to see. So next time we'll just continue where we left off, and then we'll provide some more groundbreaking information. Where can people find you? Just as a reminder, the links will be down below nonetheless, but where can people find you, Kurt?
On Instagram, kurt.havens, same with YouTube. I'm generally on one of the two. Instagram's probably the easiest way.
You're starting a forum, I heard?
Yeah, should be live in a week or so. We're just trying to embed some more videos.
Okay, I'll link that down below as well. Yep. Cool.
And I have a website, atomiclifecoaching.com as well.
Cool. Dean?
Same. Instagram, Dean STM. And then obviously we've got the supplement company, Supplement Needs, and the education platform, SN Education.
Yeah. You guys know me, so you don't have to leave anywhere else. Just stay at the Vigorous Steve YouTube channel, and you will be all shall be revealed. Dean, good luck at your show.
Thank you.
I'm sure by the time this video goes live, you've already done your show. So we are waiting for some good news.
Yep.
I'm looking forward to your shape because it looked like you improved a lot from the previous show, and you already won the last one. So we are cheering you on, and then I'll try to overlay some pictures of your success as well.
Looking forward to it. Thank you.
Cool. Take it easy, guys. I'll see you next month.
Bye-bye.
Ciao.